What's up, YouTube peeps and barbecue freaks? Thank you guys for stopping by today. Today's video is going to be probably the one video that you guys have asked about the most here recently and have been looking forward to the most. And that's me cooking a brisket on my race crew drum smoker, UDS, ugly drum smoker, whatever you want to call it, though it's far from ugly. What we're going to do today is I got my hands on a Angus beef USDA prime, not prime, USDA choice brisket. Is about 15.5 pounds. I'm going to trim it up a little bit like I would for competitions, but not quite competition style. We're going to inject it. I'm going to show you a injection that that I just got that I'm really digging. We're going to season it up. I'm going to show you a couple of the rub that I use in comps for my brisket. I'm going to give this to you. One of the rubs you can only get from one place. You'll see what I'm talking about, but I'll talk a little bit more in a different video about that rub. Anyway, excuse me, we're going to get it injected. We're going to get it seasoned up. Part of the reason for me doing this cook is I'm trying to get the au jus, the juice from the brisket, and save that for a future cook. When I go to wrap my briskets, I like to use the liquid from the previous brisket. It just adds so much more flavor, and it puts that brisket over the top. That's why I'm doing this. We're gonna get the my UDS fired up. We're gonna throw this brisket on there, and see how it turns out. I've never done a brisket on my UDS. I'm gonna kind of play around with the temps and times a little bit, but I also keep in mind that this brisket is still gonna be a lot bigger than one that I would pick for comps. Anyway, I'm talking too much. Let's get this video started. All right, so what I have here is this is a right at 15.5 pound Angus beef USDA choice brisket that I found. We are going to trim it up some. I'm gonna show you some of it. I probably won't show the whole process. I don't know, we'll see. I always like to start with this decal fat here because I already know that's coming off. Now I am going to trim this a little bit like I would for a comp. I'm not going to trim it as aggressively, but I am going to treat it a little bit like a comp brisket, which means I'm going to remove all the silver skin on top. I want that rub to stick to the meat and not this silver skin or this fat. Let's do that. We'll trim off the sides. We'll round the bottom off. I'm going to round it off up on the point end. So let me get this silver skin off the top. I'll show you what that looks like once I have that done. And then I'm going to flip it over. We'll trim some of the fat on the fat cap side. I'm going to actually leave some of that fat on there because I am cooking this fat side down. So let me get this silver skin removed, and I'll show you what that looks like once we're done with that. I'm gonna get all this off down here. All right, so I got most of it removed. What I'm doing here is I like to take my knife and just kind of shave right over it. So any high spots on the brisket I get, and I actually want the top to be completely even. A lot of times you'll see divots in briskets, and at the end of the cook, when you go and cut it, if you ever looked at the top of the brisket, you can see those same divots are in there. So I want this, once I cut it, that top slice to kind of be round and look just like a rainbow, if you will. So I am going to start on the sides here. Still got some stuff down here that I didn't take off. That's because I'm gonna just cut this whole bottom off anyway. So I'm just gonna come in about a 1/2 inch in. Just wanna square it up some. Do the same thing to this other side here. all this skin or meat that's discolored, you don't want to, you know, cook that, eat that, turn it in. I mean, it's not bad. Like, you're not going to get sick from it or anything, but you definitely don't want to, especially in comps, like turn that into a judge. So I always trim it off. Now down here on the flat, what I'm going to do is I'm going to round this off some. Now the flat sits really low right now and the point is really high. We're going to even this out. We want this to be as even as possible, and we'll do that once we flip it over and trim off some of that fat side. But for now, come right in here and round it right off. The same thing to this side here. Get that off. Round it off just a little bit more. Now this fat down here, I'm going to go ahead and remove. In fact, I think I'm going to bring this in a little more, or bring it up a little more, because it's pretty thin down here at the bottom. I think that's good. One other thing that you want to make sure you do is sharp edges and heat don't go well together. So give me a quick second. All right, so these sharp edges, I'm going to take some shears. You can use a knife if you want, but I like the shears. Just going to come around and trim these edges off. I want to make the end of this brisket almost around it, if that makes sense. You ever cook a brisket and then when you go to slice it, the edges right here start to flake off? That's because you have a sharp point here. Again, those sharp points and heat do not go well together. You know what, there's a piece here I want to bring off. Take this, round it off. I'm just gonna do the whole thing all the way around, just the top part of the brisket. And then I'll pick back up in just a second. All right, so I got the edges rounded off. I'm gonna take a little more off of this deco fat here. And I don't know if you can see it here, but the skin is has some discoloration to it. So I'm just gonna trim that off. And I'm going to flip it over. We'll work on that fat cap side. Now, in a comp, I would actually, one second, get some of this off. In a comp, I would actually trim this whole point off. I would probably cut it right along this fat line here and round it off and remove this whole point. Like I said, I'm kind of trimming it comp style today, not completely, so I'm not going to do that. I'm going to save some of that meat. So we'll flip it over. Mentioned earlier, remember earlier where I mentioned that the point sits higher than the flat. You have this big old flap here of meat. We want to remove that. There's a lot of fat in here, as you can see. So we're gonna get rid of that. We are gonna cut into this meat some, but that's quite all right. Just round it off down on the back end. I want to trim this
down a little more so it sits flat. If you're that's more important if you're cooking on like an offset smoker, reverse flow smoker. If you're cooking on a Weber Smoky Mountain drum, something like that, where the heat's coming up from the bottom, it's not all that important or as important, but I just like to, you know, trim my briskets the same all the time, no matter what I'm cooking on, just so I'm always used to, you know, trimming it a certain way. I'm going to trim down some of this fat here. Take off some of this fat. Now, this fat at the bottom, like I said, I'm not going to get too carried away with it because you can always trim it off at the end. Right before I turn in my slices, just take that fat at the bottom, cut that fat off, and I'm good to go. Plus, again, that heat's going to come up from the bottom, so I want to leave some on here to protect it. So this fat here, how thick it is, we want to make sure we get some of that off too. So let's, and it comes all the way down here. So don't try to get it all in one shot. Just kind of work your way down. I think a lot of times people will make the mistake of trying to trim it all at once and then they end up digging into the meat. Now that still might happen. I do it all the time. But if you can just kind of layer trim that fat off, I think it helps prevent that from happening. So I don't know if you noticed this, but I got my left hand underneath the brisket. I'm kind of lifting it up, making it easier to trim some of this fat. See, there's still quite a bit of fat here. Now, you trim off as much fat as you like, or you leave as much fat as you like, totally up to you. Gonna round this off. I'll show you what this back end looks like in just a second because I know you can't really see it. But you can see I'm starting to trim this fat away, thinning this out. All right, so I got the brisket trimmed up. We are going to inject it. And what I'm going to use is this Play Bowl from Lucky Charms Barbecue. This is some really, really good stuff. They actually have several injections. They actually have two for brisket. So you have the Play Bowl and then the Angry Bowl. The difference is depending on what meat you're using. If you're cooking like a Wagyu, you want to run with the Angry Bowl. If you're cooking a choice, a prime, or even a select, Play Bowl. So they're just slightly different. They also have this Boss Hog, which is a pork injection. Excellent. I'm gonna tell you right now, this is what I use on my competition ribs when I inject them, this Boss Hog. And they have a foul play for chicken. This one also is another one that I use in my competition chickens. A lot of top teams in Texas are using these products. I know Brother Bill over at Chicken Fried Barbecue. The dude is kicking butt on the trail, and he's using these same products. He okayed me to say that. That's why I'm mentioning it. Like I said, a lot of top cooks are using these products from Lucky Charms Barbecue. He also has a couple of rubs. Where did I put it? I'm gonna do a separate video on these rubs. I don't know where I put them, but they are excellent. I can't wait to show you guys. Anyway, so this calls for 3/4 cup of Play Bowl and 2.5 cups of liquid. So what I've got here, got my shaker. I've got 3.5, or not 3.5, 3/4 cup of Play Bowl. Get that in there. I am using, you can use water, whatever you like. I am using beef broth. And actually a good combination would be beef broth and chicken broth. That would actually be a really good combination. But I only have beef, so. And it calls for 2.5 cups. I'm only gonna go, since I only have one brisket, just under 2 cups. Because I need to save some of that beef broth for the wrap. So, make sure your lid is on there, you get it shaken up, and then we're gonna get it injected into this brisket. All right, so I got it mixed up here. It actually smells, I guess I'm picking up some like celery seed maybe. A little taste. Oh gosh. Oh man. I'm telling you guys. I will leave a link below to the Lucky Charms barbecue website. This is good. This tastes nothing like it smells. It's good. Good gosh almighty. I'm glad I'm doing this practice run. Damn it, that's good. So anyway, we're just gonna start injecting this brisket. And I like to go with the grain first, plump it up, and once I do that, then I go against the grain. But you inject however you inject. Whoa, 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 got a squirter. I'm just trying to go about every inch. With my hand on top, I can actually feel that brisket plumping up. God, this injection is good. You know, if there's any left over, when I go and wrap this brisket, I am probably going to pour this injection in that wrap as well. It's really beefy, salty. Perfect for brisket, that's for sure. So I'm gonna get this bad boy injected. I'm only gonna inject from the meat side here. I'm not gonna inject on the fat cap side. Again, I'm gonna go with the grain from the bottom all the way up, and then when I come back down, I'm gonna go against the grain. So I'll pick back up once this is done. All right, so I got this brisket injected. I'm gonna season the bottom. I'm going to put a little Parquet squeezed butter. Let's see. I think these two are almost out. I think I got more. But you don't need a whole lot, just a little bit. I'm going to come back with some W sauce, with some Worcestershire. And get us a nice little coating. This is going to act as the binder for the rub. I just really like this combination. I think it does well. So, where'd I put it? The first rub I'm going to use, I'm debating if I want to show them all, but I'll give you guys a little bit. My first layer is this fajita seasoning from Fiesta. Really, really good stuff. I like this as a base for my brisket. It just goes really, really well with beef. I try to do the sides first. Get it all the way around. Man, this stuff is excellent. It's good on chicken as a base. Good stuff. But this is my first layer that I usually use for comps. So that's that. And I think this is it. Yeah. This is the second layer. Now this is not a commercial rub that you can find anywhere. There's only one individual that makes it. And I'm going to talk a little more about this rub in a later video. This is a good Texas rub. If you want a good Texas brisket, this rub right here is it. Even by itself. It's got paprika, onion powder, garlic powder, all the usual stuff, salt and pepper. But it is excellent. But I will do a video later on about this rub. Now, a lot of people feel like you don't need to season the fat cap side, especially if you're cooking it fat cap down. I like to season it because once I go to wrap it and put this in a foil pan, I want all that goodness to sit in the bottom of that au jus or that beef broth and flavor it. So I always season the bottom side. You don't have to. It's totally up to you. Oh, let's see. I think that one was out. And we're just gonna repeat the process on the top side. That'll work. Doesn't need a lot. So that's the parquet and some W sauce. We don't have to worry about doing sides because we already did them. And then we'll just repeat the process. Got the Fiesta seasoning here. Don't be afraid to season this meat. It's a big piece of meat. You could take it. Often I see a lot of people just go really lightly, and I mean, to each their own, you know, but I want a lot of flavor on my meat. And this can handle it because it's so big. I don't even know if that sounded right. Anyway, come back with this other rub here. Then I'm gonna let it sit. I do got my drum already up to temp. My plan is to kind of cook this hot and fast a little bit. I'm gonna try to start it at 300, maybe 325. Let it go for a couple hours that way. I like to start off hot at a high temperature, because what happens is this brisket in high heat, it will plump up. And when it plumps up, kind of tightens up, that's how you get that nice even dome on top. So when you go to cut your slices, you ever seen a nice turn-in box where the tops of the slices were just nice and round, dome-like? That's what happens when you cook hot and fast. It'll tighten up really quickly. So that's it. We're gonna let this sit here, and we'll get it on the drum in just a bit. All right, you guys, just put the brisket on. It was sitting, the temp here is sitting just under 300. So got the brisket on. I got some, I'm actually using, what am I using? Oak, post oak. I got some post oak down here at the bottom. That's what I got. Brisket on, fat cap down, get the lid shut, and try to keep this bad boy right at 300. And you know, we're just gonna let it run for a couple hours and see how it turns out. You guys, we are 2 hours into this cook, and you can see we're sitting right at 305, which is perfect. We're gonna open this lid, take a look at this brisket. Ooh, let some of that smoke clear away. Now you will notice that I did rotate the entire grate. I did that at the 1 hour mark, and I don't know if you can pick this up, but this brisket, good gosh, it has plumped up like crazy. Yeah, I don't know if you can pick that up, but man, this is what happens when you cook hot and fast. That thing will plump up. This part down it, so it's really thick, and then it just kind of drops down here. My slices will come from here anyway, so I'm good. I'm going to spritz it with some, I can't believe it's nut butter. Again, we're 2 hours in. It's taking on some nice color. I'm going to rotate it again. Every hour I'm rotating it, and that's just to ensure that I get even cooking all the way around. So that's that. I'm going to rotate the grate, get the lid back on, and then we'll check back in probably another hour and a half, 2 hours. Yeah, so we're right at 4.5 hours in. This is what it's looking like. This bottom part down here is getting a lot darker, but this is a lot thinner compared to over here. This thing is just really plumped up. So the fact that this is a lot thinner, it doesn't surprise me that it's kind of drying up and burning out. So what I'm gonna do, this bark is set. I'm gonna pull it off, put it in a foil pan. I'm gonna add some beef broth,
and then put it back on the pit. So let me get this out. We'll get in the pan. This bark is set. It's ready to wrap. And then we're gonna wrap it for a couple hours and see how it turns out. Hey guys, so I got the brisket in this full pan. Take some of this beef broth, just kind of pour it in here. And I am going to add, I'm gonna add all of this. And there's about 2 cups worth of beef broth in here. Actually, let's see, I used 2. Yeah, right about 2 cups of beef broth. And then I have some of this brisket injection left over that we used to inject this brisket. And I'm gonna dump that in here as well. And as the rest of this fat renders out and melts into this injection and beef broth, it's gonna make a really nice broth that is actually what I'm aiming for. I wanna save this for my next cook. So I'm gonna get a piece of foil over the top, and then we'll get it back on the race crew drum, which is still sitting 4.5 hours later, still sitting right at 300, exactly at 300. So let me get a lid on here, and then we'll get it back on the smoker. All right, so I got the brisket here. It's been resting. This brisket cooked for about 6 hours. So I went about 4.5 hours unwrapped and about 1.5 hours wrapped. And the tenderness of the brisket, the temp was where I was wanting it. It was reading about 208, 210. So it's set. I've been letting it rest for about 3 hours. We're gonna cut into it and see how it looks. I did not sauce this brisket. So that's the only thing different that I didn't do compared to my competition brisket. So I'm gonna slice it up, see what it looks like. We'll slice up this flat. I think from about here on, those are probably slices I'm not gonna use if I was turning this in for a comp, because this flat down here in this area was kind of dried out. It was a lot thinner. So we'll cut the rest of this up, see what it looks like. Again, normally I would slice this brisket. I am not doing that this time. I'm not slicing. I would sauce this brisket. I'm not doing it this time. We're just gonna slice it up, see what it looks like. That bark has set really nicely. Go 1 or 2 more here. And then we'll change the direction. Let's take a look at some of these slices here. We're gonna come right in here, lay this down. So this is looking good. So slice of this flat, plenty of moisture in there. Oh, there you go. You can see when I bend it over, this thing is still really tender. When I put it over my knife, got some nice bend to it. So let's see, I'm gonna slice this, put these slices off to the side, and then I'm gonna slice this point. And that we do a little differently. We're gonna take it, instead of going this way, we're gonna turn it sideways. I'm gonna cut it right in half. Show you what that looks like. Look at that. Look at all that moisture in there. Oh man, that's good. So we're gonna take some of this, slice this up. These slices, you wanna make it a little thicker on the point compared to the flat.
This thing smells good. I can't wait to taste it. So, all right, so I'm gonna take a piece of the flat, I'm gonna take a piece of the point, we're gonna pull it aside, get a taste test, and we're gonna see how this turned out. I mean, yeah, it's not bad right there. Let's give it a taste. Okay. Again, just real quick look at the flat, I mean the point, plenty of moisture in here. Let's give it a taste.
Hey guys, we're going to taste a piece of this flat, which I have here. Nice and tender. Oh. That flavor is excellent. Definitely picking up that injection. The rubs. The rub is just out of this world good. Got a little piece of the burn in, piece of the point here. We got some fat on here and some meat on here. I love the fat part of the brisket, the fatty part of the brisket. That's what this is. We're gonna give it a try. It just melts in your mouth. I could go. I gotta go in for another piece. That really is good. The rubs worked excellent. The injection, I'm definitely picking that up. It's very beefy, salty, just full of flavor. Oh man, this is so good. This is probably one of the best briskets that I've cooked here at the house. It is damn good. Again, you definitely got to try that injection from Lucky Charms. I will leave a link below where you can find some if you're interested in. Again, I don't get a kickback or anything, but it is damn good. Good gosh almighty, that injection is awesome. The rubs, the Fiesta, the other rub that I use, I'm gonna do a separate video talking a little bit more about that rub. I think you guys are gonna enjoy that one. So if you want to know what I use in comms, if you're looking for a really good Texas brisket, make sure you stick around. And you know, if you haven't subscribed already, make sure you do. Make sure you hit that notification bell, because I got some stuff coming up that I think you guys are going to like. So anyway, thank you guys for tuning in. I truly appreciate it. I will see you guys next time. Take care.